Who's filming who? Yeah, trying to do a Q&A. Gonna get interrupted. My wife and her uncle are away, but they're coming back. So I'm only going to be able to get a couple of questions in this location. And then I'm going to have to start over. I just gave an hour-long talk, and I'm in between tasks. I've got my big computer going over here with that monitor. I've got my laptop monitor going, and let me do this a little bit. Let me just do that, just to be safe. Clouds are coming in and out. It's supposed to be cloudy, mostly sunny. Okay, let's go question number 1. Thank you for anybody who sent questions in. There's a lot of them. Phone's blowing up. The Honda 300 CRFL Rally has been ordered, people. Just calm down. Calm down. Hey, Dan. Would appreciate your thoughts on how to find a new project to do. For example, if you have to leave for a new country for the long term, how do you identify and begin the process of doing a new project without just doing travel photography? Also, are fixers necessary for this process? All right, let me just start with those first two, because this crafty dude or dudette worked in a bunch of questions at once. I like your style. So I don't fly to a country and then figure out the project. I always have the project well defined before I go, if in fact I'm going to do a project. So I would always have done the research prior. I would have made my connections. I would have made a plan. I would have known logistically what I had to do. And I would have had all of that done before I even got on the plane to fly wherever I'm going. It's very rare that I would fly to a country blind and then try to miraculously come up with a project of some sort. That's really difficult to do, so I would always do that prior. That is how I would do that. How I come up with the story idea is incredibly complex. I've done 2 YouTube films on how to do long-term projects, so you may want to go back and watch those films. I've heard they're brilliant. And who am I to argue that maybe they're 2 of the most life-affirming and challenging films ever made and put on YouTube? I don't know. I would go that far. I'm not sure many of you would, but I would. So I would watch those, and then story ideas come from a variety of places. I do not look at photography online for the most part. I'm not looking at other people's work and saying, gee, I wish I would have done that, and then try to go copy those stories. My story ideas come from literature. They come from poetry. They come from music, they come from film, they come from conversation, they come from research, they come from nature, they come from experience. I have a list of story ideas a mile long. If I won the lottery and didn't have to work, I would never come close to being able to do all of these story ideas. There's just too many that I have over the years, but I'm also practiced in coming up with story ideas. I know how to do this. I know what I'm looking for. You have to find how it is that you do that, because I don't know. And how do you identify processing and project? And are fixers necessary? No, not necessarily. You don't always have to have a fixer, but depending on the story, the situation on the ground, the safety level, that's where fixers come into play. Or just access. Sometimes some stories are incredibly difficult to access, and you will simply not get that access without someone, a liaison into the community. Other times it could be dangerous on the ground and you need someone. When I went to Cambodia in '96, wasn't a fixer, it was somebody that I had met in the US randomly at a cafe in Laguna Beach. I was eating breakfast with my mom, and a guy walked out with his food and his wife walked out with her food, and all the tables were full. And we had 2 empty chairs at our table. And I said, hey, dude. Literally, I used dude. It was Laguna. Did I mention that? And I said, why don't you eat at our table? And he said, cool, and sat down. That ended 2 weeks later with me landing in Cambodia and meeting this guy. And he was sort of my liaison into Cambodian society at that time. And there were parts of the country that were completely off limits because the Khmer Rouge were still active. There were times where we got shot at going south down through the country trying to get to Kampot. There were sort of dangerous moments. He and I had to run one night in Phnom Penh from guys with machine guns that were coming after us. They didn't shoot at us, but they were coming after us, and we ran through the dark through a park at night trying to get away. And so he was my guy. I'd never been there. He'd been there many, many times. He had an organization there. He was starting a law school in Phnom Penh. So I could have gone to Cambodia easily at that time, but I would not have walked away with the work I did without him. And every night was a new introduction to someone else. People at the UN, the Mary Knoll sisters, woman working with amputee victims, teaching them jobs to get them back into society. All of these people were put in front of me because of him. So without him, I wouldn't have had anything. Okay, let me keep going here. The first project was just published, but I had the opportunity to shoot a project in my own community. Damn it. I really want to keep telling stories with my camera, but I don't know how to find a new and interesting project in a foreign land I'm not as passionate about as my home country. Man, just read history. If there's a country that you're interested in, read the history of the country. And if you read the history of the country and you're not excited, I don't know, you might already be dead. So great stories are all over the place. What it takes is either doing the research, reading, or going out into the community. Is that a generator that just kicked on? That's a first. I've been in this house for a month and a half, 2 months. Never heard a generator. Just heard a generator. Okay. Question number 2. This is from, I think, John Burrow. Somehow, John, your name got attached to this. I don't know why. I've enjoyed your book videos. I do have a question. Is photography superior as a medium for storytelling to writing? Or is writing a better way? A better way of phrasing the question, why choose photography to tell a story and not prose? Or vice versa? Would love your take on this. John, I love you for asking that question. And here's where I infuriate the entire photo community worldwide. Writing is the high art, in my opinion. Writing has always been the high art. I hold writing above photography. That might sound crazy from someone who dedicated his entire adult life to photography, but I feel that writing is the high art. I love writing more than photography. I think writing affords you an opportunity as an artist or a journalist or whatever that photography does not. Photography's weakness is you have to be there. You cannot fabricate, although AI is rapidly approaching and people are, I'm sure, going to start fabricating as well. And you're going to have the differentiation between man-made photography or woman-made photography and artificial intelligence. So that's a whole separate conversation. I love writing. And here's the thing. Let's what's the word I'm looking for? Stereotype. Level everybody on the planet Earth into the same category, which is impossible. Seeing as 50 million Americans can't read at a 5th grade level, and another 50 million can't read a novel at an 8th grade level. When I wrote for the newspapers, I had to write at a 7th grade level for the American audience because we are so undereducated here that that's just a reality. But writing, let's say that you and I have the same approximate vocabulary, and my long-lost evil twin, Nigel, who lives in the UK, he has the same vocabulary. But the way and the order in which you put those words is entirely different from me. And what I love about writing, good writing, is that it allows or forces the viewer to fabricate their own visuals. Stephen King called it telepathy, writer's telepathy, where he could describe a red desk, but the red desk in your mind looked different from the red desk in mine, and in some cases it looked exactly the same. And that's the author toying and pulling with the audience. That is why I love writing. You can do it anywhere at any time. Photography, especially documentary work, is incredibly time-consuming. It's incredibly expensive. It's incredibly tied to access. And that's the weakness. And that is why you're seeing so little funding given for long-term reportage anymore, because nobody wants to spend the money. When an image is considered mature after 2 weeks, and all that clients are trying to do is go viral with some sort of moronic little GIF, why spend the money to do that? So I feel that writing is a stronger medium than photography, and I feel more and more that way because I think photography has basically sabotaged itself, especially professional photography, that I think writing is doing really well and killing it. So, but I love that. I love poetry as well. If you haven't seen the movie Patterson, for example, Patterson is a Jim Jarmusch film with Adam Driver about a bus driver in Patterson, New Jersey, I believe. And he's a poet, and Ron Padgett is the poet who actually wrote the poems for the film. But to me, that is, first of all, a great film. You know, no special effects, super simple. love Jim Jarmusch films in general, but I think that that's a strong case for what makes a good film, which is good acting, a good script, a good story. But Power of Poetry, I haven't even tapped into it. I know, hard to believe, MILNOR, a skill that you haven't mastered. I know, trust me, but I'm so close. Okay, question number 3 makes me laugh my butt off. My chafed butt from 30 miles in high humidity yesterday. Not really. I'm not chafed. I got calluses, people. Probably more than you wanted to know. What happened to the NFTs? Oh boy. Ouch. Ouch. Oh, some of the highbrow folks in the industry are smarting from that question. Ooh, I went on Twitter earlier just for sport, and I put, man, sure haven't heard anything about NFTs in a while. What happened? And I just waited for the forest fire, the brush fire, for the fission bomb to go off on Twitter. And I don't know what's happening with NFTs. I really don't, because I don't really care. If someone is involved in NFTs and wants to do NFTs and is enjoying NFTs and it works for them and it helps them discover people, or they've made some money or whatever it is, fine. I frankly don't care. What turns me off about NFTs was the greed that I saw almost immediately, and the arms race of untalented people, or under-talented because they'd never put the work in, who just saw mythical dollar signs and put out crap at insane prices trying to get rich off of NFTs. And that's disgusting. It undermines the importance of photography in general. It was the new shiny thing. Remember Clubhouse? Gone. NFTs, in my circles, I have not heard a peep about NFTs in 2 months. It was everything in my channels. Everything, everyone was doing it. It was all NFTs in the future. Literally, not a peep. Just something out of right field this morning in my head was like, hey, what happened to NFTs? What happened to those? And then, I have no idea. But what I saw during the peak of that short peak of craziness was, I'm going to get rich. I'm going to get rich. I'm going to get rich. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get rich. It was, and people who really, frankly, just were not talented. Just not enough. I do know some people who are talented, very talented, in fact, who were doing the NFT thing, and what I saw them making was fantastic. So, yeah, if you can solve that riddle, but the overall residue was one of nuclear arms race. And like, I'm just going to do this because everybody else is, and I'm going to throw some incredible amount of money out for this, or demand. And it was embarrassing and gross, and I think it probably set photography back. That is my quick take on that. All right, I'm off of the big computer. That was 3, although the numbering said 2, but the question before that also had a 2 on it, which will tell you the kind of organizational skills that I have, which is not strong. So I guess this is 4, which is actually 1 on the small computer. I hear voices. This isn't gonna, it's gonna be over soon, people. Nope, that was the question and answer from last week. Okay, hey Dan, you said something towards the end of your video that I've been thinking about over the last couple of days. You were talking about knowing what you would want to do with your life if money wasn't an issue, if time wasn't an issue, if all exterior circumstances were removed. And the thing you said that stuck with me was that for the most of your life, you knew the answer to that question. I did. But now you're not so sure. I was just wondering why that is. Where do I start? So yeah, I think one of the hardest questions to learn for people who are fortunate enough to have opportunity in their life, that are fortunate enough to have choice in their life, and a lot of folks on our planet, probably over 1 billion, maybe more, don't. They're simply in survival mode. They're looking for food, water, and shelter to protect their family, to find food. There are millions, hundreds of millions, billions, potentially, people who are at risk all the time. So this conversation only applies to the 1%ers in the world, like myself. So I always knew what I wanted because photography, once I found photography and I found storytelling, it consumed my entire being. For there was a 20-year period where that's all I did. I didn't do anything else. My life was so narrow and so boring outside of the fact that I was doing long-term photography projects. I thought it was great at the time, and I'm not saying I would go back and change that, but with what I know now, my life just was not enough. But if you had said to me during that 20-year time frame, no strings attached, money's not an issue, what are you going to do? I'd say I'd be doing the exact same thing I'm doing right now. I'd be traveling the world telling stories. That's not me anymore. And what I also realized a couple of days ago, and this is a big one, people. You may want to write this one down. You may want to use a highlighter, use a highlighter so that you'll never remember it in the future. I realize I am never going to be the photographer I was. I am never going to be a long form. I think that was a nut on the roof. That was a squirrel above the house dropping nuts on the roof. I'm never going to be that photographer again. The world has changed. Access has changed. My life has changed. The whole idea of doing that work has changed. It's much harder now. It takes much more time. People are suspicious. They're much more reluctant to give access. With my job, I'm not going to have that kind of time to do it. And I always thought I would. I always thought at some point I was going to go back and do that kind of work. I'm not. 2 days ago was the realization. But on the flip side of that, the positive thing was I'm going to do something new. I'm going to do something else. And I am stoked about doing this. And this is going to be a combination of things. There's going to be much more word involved. There's going to be works on paper. There's going to be mixed media, art materials, acrylics and pastel pencils and photography and all kinds of things. I want to be able to make work anywhere at any time. And with reportage and documentary work, that is just simply not possible. I need something that fits my lifestyle, something that fits the new model of the world, which is I want to be able to make something I'm not going to get sued over. I want to make something I don't have to request access for, and I want to be able to do it anywhere. So I still probably can't answer. If you said to me, look, money's not an option or not a concern, and you can do anything you want in the world, it would be an amalgam of things far outside of what I've ever done before. I'm about to get this Honda, and I'm putting packs on the back, and I'm going to be doing moto tours all over the place. That's something I've not done before. I've been riding motorcycles my whole life, but I've never done that kind of thing, which is going to allow me to explore a lot of places I've never been. And continue reading. I want to do some serious writing. There's a movie script I'm trying to write that I need to write because it's part of a project that I'm working on right now. I'm doing far more projects that blend fact and fiction instead of just narrative, factual style of photography. And I'm adapting. And it's been slow to do that. And I can't answer that question anymore because I don't know. The world is too wide open. And again, that is a privilege, even being able to utter those words. The fact that I have the opportunity to even have the time to consider these things, ponder these things, means that I am 1% of the 1%. And I recognize that. Okay, number 5, Techno crisis. I have a 6-year-old iMac, Lightroom, 2 things you would think combined to make editing photos a breeze. Well, you'd be wrong. The files are not huge, 15 megs per, and he only used 3 rolls across the day, but the iMac is struggling to cope. Then we move into Lightroom. I pay monthly for Lightroom Mobile and CC, which seems to be utterly inefficient. CC only lets me download a single image at a time to my Mac, which is a painful process, about 4 clicks to go. No matter what I try, the Lightroom files export about 1/3 of the size of the file, so the quality in the finished project will never be as good as it could be. Finally, I am using Milk Books to make a wedding moleskin, which looks super classy, but the uploading onto the Milk site seems to be completely functionless and crashes when you try to upload 100 images, all of which are 1/3 of the size they should be. Going back to my original question, how do you stop yourself from going insane? Well, first of all, you're asking me a tech question, which is hilarious in itself. Just know you can't win. The tech is always going to win, and the algorithm, whatever algorithm it may be, if it's not your own, is always going to win. So the sooner you surrender to this and realize that there will be constant technical hurdles, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. We all go through the same thing. Have you ever had some strange thing happen to you, and you tell a friend, and the friend goes, "Oh, never happened to me"? It has happened to them. They have just either convinced themselves otherwise, or they just don't want to think about the fact that it did happen to them. It happens to everyone. Even my friends who are, I'll give you a perfect example. I know someone who is sponsored by every single printer. He's sponsored by one of the major printer companies, and every calibration service, and every paper company, and everyone in the printer sphere sponsors him. Everything he gets for free. You go make a print with him. First one, not right. Second one, not right. Third one, not right. Fourth one, okay, we're getting close. It happens to everyone. just because you have all this stuff doesn't mean it's going to work. Constant conflicts. I just gave a talk about all the equipment that I have to use to do my job. I carry an old Delkin wired mouse. Delkin wired mouse. Ugly. Think Office Depot, guy behind the counter at Office Depot doing invoices all day. That's the mouse he uses. It's not this one. It's not this super cool Logitech with 7 buttons that does everything great. My trash can Mac crashes every night. No matter what I do, it crashes. Guess what? When it crashes, you lose Bluetooth. So I have to carry a wired Logitech mouse to use every morning to sign back into my crashed trash can Mac. My GoPro is recording without me even touching it. I could not have cued that better. This is recording. I didn't touch it. It's recording, and it, by the way, it recorded for like 5 seconds and then turned itself off. I didn't even touch it. This happens to everyone. Don't lose your mind. Okay, and this is a continuation of the same question, which I believe was number 5. It seems to me that the modern era is hell-bent on making us pay thousands for the next computer, or that your current one will die with lack of interoperability. You are forced to pay through the nose for continuous subscription-based services that are subpar. If you shoot digital, you have chronically large files and downloads take forever. If you shoot film, then you rely on companies like WeTransfer who seem unreliable, and at the end of the day, you still can't shoot. Ainge or Reddit. I don't know if there was a question at the end. I'm now at the point where I might get rid of all the things tech and just keep a Pritt stick, Instax wide, and a notebook. Here's the thing. You have a digital camera. It probably works fine. Whatever it is. You have a laptop. What's that new software that everybody's using? Is it Affinity? Or LumaFusion or something? It's like an alternative to Lightroom and Capture One and all that. Whatever that is, figure out what that software is. I should know, I don't. Been told about it forever. You got your laptop, you got your digital camera. Get an 18 terabyte portable hard drive and get an account with Backblaze. And Backblaze is going to back up that laptop and it's going to back up that the 18 terabyte hard drive. And just go shoot. And yes, keep your pen in your journal. That's your analog, your foot in the Stone Age and the other foot's in the Space Age. And you're just going to keep it simple and do that. That's completely doable. It's when you get into all the complexities of all these other things where things get a bit challenging. I understand. And yes, I would, I just, like I said, gave a talk about all of the equipment I use for my Blurb job. And that's 5 bags of equipment that I have right here. And I went through every piece. And at the end of that, I said, I still don't feel like I have the camera that I want, which is somewhere between the Leica Q2 and the Fuji X Pro 3 and the new Nikon Z8. Somewhere in there is a camera that I would love. Full frame, small, rangefinder-y, but not necessarily a rangefinder, but the combination too of small lenses. For the love of crap, I see these amazing mirrorless cameras, and then they're like, hey, have you seen the new 20 millimeter? Yeah, here it is. Yeah, here it is. I want a small, fast, small. That's what I want. Fast, small. Try to follow me here, Fletch. You can't run the headline and then not run the story. Really? Why not? I want small cameras, full frame, responsive, great viewfinder. Come on, I might actually buy the Nikon. Why not? I have Sony, GoPro, 360, Fuji, Holga, Leica, Voigtlander, Nikon already, film cameras, and probably more, because I'm a loser. All right, number 6, how did your wife get started in photography? Great question, and thank you for asking about my wife. She is a superior being to myself, pure crazy. Let's not forget about that, or underestimate that. She is. She was given a Brownie camera when she was tiny, but it wasn't until college. She went to Mass College of Art. She was a sculpture major, switched to photography. She printed for Doc Edgerton, who's the guy that did the stroboscopic work, and she printed for Aaron Siskin, was a darkroom printer for both of those people. And then she moved to California. She was working at a camera shop in Huntington Beach and was approached by the rep for Ricoh and said, you should be a technical sales rep for Ricoh. She started working for Ricoh cameras. She worked for Ricoh for 4 or 5 years before getting a job at Canon. She brought her portfolio to the Canon job interview, which I did in 99 or 97 when I got a job with Kodak. I also brought a portfolio and they didn't know what to do with it. They were just like, what is this? Which tells you a lot about the state of those companies. and she worked for Canon cameras for 30 years. Everybody knows her. She was kind of an anomaly in the camera world in the sense that she was not a very technical sales rep, but she was fantastic when it came to relationships, and people liked her and they trusted her, and they knew that they could talk to her about things that were outside of like fluoride elements. So that's how she got started. Number 7, how do you choose between 2 images? There's always one better. Start there. You just know that between 2 images, there's always one that's slightly better. And in the words of the Highlander, there can be only one. And so get off your lazy ass and just know that there's one. So editing is an art form, and there are people who do it full time, and they're professionals, and they are better than you and I. And that's the truth. So you can learn a lot from that. Oftentimes when I'm working with photographers who are trying to learn how to edit, I will say, okay, here's the shoot you did. You shot whatever, 1,000 images. Let me edit to the top 30, then give me the top 20, and then tell me the single best or most important image of the shoot. A lot of times people are like, oh, it's impossible. No, it's not impossible. It's called editing. You just know going in, if there's 2 and there can be only one is better than the other. And that takes study. And also, how and why that image fits into an overall sequence can be also equally as important. So you want to make sure that the image is in context with the rest of the process. Or if you're just a onesie guy, if you're one of these super cool, hip film YouTubers that has a camera crew in tow, and you're kind of just shooting random stuff, maybe you are just after a single image. Maybe you're in the city or you're on a beach somewhere and you're shooting random stuff and you're like, I'm going to just make one image from today. You know there's only one that's better than the rest. And so I don't know how else to phrase that or tell you that. You just have to, you've got to be ruthless. You've got to be ruthless. Remember and this is a whole separate conversation. Somebody write me back and tell me to make a film about this concept, because I'll forget. Lester Bangs again. San Diego, almost famous, musician, writer who wrote about music. And he goes, Philip Seymour Hoffman. He goes, I used to do a lot of speed, a little cough syrup, and I'd stay up all night, writing about the Faces or Coltrane, 25 pages of drivel just to write. That's what this whole thing is about. This is not a hobby. Even for those of you out there who think it is, if you're watching this channel and you're 28 minutes into my Q&A, this ain't a hobby. This is in your blood. This is an infection. Photography is an infection. That quote from Lester Bangs, or the Philip Seymour Hoffman character in Almost Famous, when I heard that quote the first time, I was like, that explains my entire life. We've all done that. I didn't stay up at night writing 25 pages of dribble about John Coltrane. I spent the night in the darkroom making crap prints just to be in the darkroom, just to be in and on and around photography. That's what it's about. And so you know it's out there. That's how you choose between images, because you put the time in and you grind it out. It's like putting a hone on a blade on a stone. All right, let's move on. Number 8, I think this is 8. I can't remember, I lost count. Any advice for adding audio to a Blurb photo book? Yes, plenty of advice. Don't do it, don't try it, nobody wants it. How about that? Now, if you're going to do a slideshow or a YouTube film, knock yourself out. Add audio to the stills, it would be fantastic. My favorite combo of ingredients, audio and stills. All these books that we were told we all wanted, the book is dead. All these jackasses that when digital came out, film is dead, it's all dead, you're going to go out of work, no reason to use it, it's over, if you use it, you're a Luddite, you're a loser. I lived through a decade of that. Same thing when the Kindles came around. Books are dead, paper's dead, libraries are dead, everything's going away. All these people are full of crap, and they're all trying to angle in because they have an angle or they're trying to make money. We were told that newspapers were told, can't shoot color, can't shoot black and white, gotta shoot color. Audience is too sophisticated. Wrong. Multimedia is gonna save newspapers. Wrong. Nobody wanted it. So these books with videos and embedded audio and 3D books you go in and out, nobody wanted them. They just wanted a paper book, that's all. So I wouldn't do it in book form. I would do it in motion form, and then do it and do it well. Uh-oh, door closing. Holy crap, I might have to end it here. I am going to end it here because they're going to come in here. They're going to come in here. You're going to keep calling me. Cameron, get over here and pick me up. That is, I don't know, 30 minutes. That's enough. And I've got another, they're all numbered incorrectly, so I'm guessing 8 or 9 questions I didn't get to. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm one person with one opinion. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. And if you have a chance to buy the new 20mm, I would. Because I couldn't do what I did. What's that line that every moronic photo ad says? I could have never done this with the last version. It's only if I bought this new one that I realize fulfill my dreams as a human being. It's all crap. It's all meant to sell. Why did this turn on by itself? Sometimes this thing walks around by itself. Shouldn't this be walking by now? Okay, I'm fighting with my... Just kidding. I'll be back later.